So tell me about OnApp software. What do you do?
So OnApp is a software provider. We provide a cloud management platform for service providers, so hosting companies, telcos, to allow them to deliver an infrastructure as a service cloud to their end customers. So OnApp's core product, OnApp Cloud, sits on top of a service provider's virtualization layer, so on top of VMware, Zen, KVM, and provides effectively three key things. First of all, the automation layer, so deals with putting up and tearing down virtual machines, as well as all of the bits in between, so resizing, for example, failing over from one hypervisor to another, that sort of thing. On top of that, we have a user management layer, so that deals with obviously managing all of the users within the system, but also from a service provider perspective, being able to manage individual customers, users, and indeed be able to handle from a reseller perspective the situation where you have a service provider selling through another service provider to an end user. Within that layer, we also have a set of user interfaces which are web-based and also iOS and Android-based, so that service providers can rebrand. So it gives them the full set of capabilities to offer their end customer.
Would you integrate billing in that too? Is that
yeah, so the final, exactly right, the final layer is metering and billing. So we allow service providers to create very granular service plans, billing plans, sorry, to define exactly how they want to sell their service to their end customers. So we allow them to define those within the OnApp product, and we generate all of the metering data and push that across to the billing systems. So it's a very service provider friendly product at the end of the day. So that's OnApp Cloud. We then got two other products, one of which is OnApp CDN. OnApp CDN is a content delivery network which is intended to accelerate a customer's content on a global basis. What is unique about the OnApp CDN is that it is really one of the first instances of a globally federated cloud application. So what we've done is take the spare infrastructure from the hundreds of service provider customers that we have globally, and turn each of those service providers' spare infrastructure into a CDN point of presence. We then federate those all together and turn that into a global CDN. So at the moment that CDN contains 100 points of presence within our marketplace. So what that means is that the service provider who wants to offer a CDN capability can through the OnApp Cloud product, switch on a point of presence within their own data centers, say in London and New York. But then where they don't have infrastructure, they can simply go to the OnApp marketplace and buy capacity from other service providers on a pay-as-you-go basis. So I can simply point and click to choose, for example, a point of presence in Singapore, in Tokyo, in San Francisco, wherever is important to me. What this allows service providers to do is, first of all, it allows them to offer a CDN capability with a much better margin than they would be able to by reselling, say, Akamai or Limelight. Secondly, however, when a service provider has that spare infrastructure that they want to contribute to that marketplace, then they can actually monetize it. So when other service providers use that infrastructure they've contributed to the marketplace, they get paid. So it's a great way to monetize infrastructure that would otherwise be sitting there doing nothing at all apart from depreciating. Our third product is something that we've launched in beta, and this is called OnApp Storage. OnApp Storage is effectively a service provider friendly replacement for a traditional storage area network. So storage area networks, we find, are typically one of the biggest hurdles to customers implementing cloud. Reason for that is not only because they're really expensive, they take up data center space, but also they're architected for enterprises. They're really architected for enterprises.
A lot of overhead.
Yeah, and one of the big issues is in a heavily virtualized cloud environment, you've got lots and lots of different virtual machines accessing a huge range of storage. So your storage controllers become a real bottleneck in the system. And in order to fix that problem, you have to throw a whole load more money at it, and that's not always what people want to do. So what we've done is come up with a better way to do it. Essentially, what that is to take all of the hypervisor servers on which the service provider is running their cloud, and within each of those hypervisor servers, there is more often than not there are spare drive bays that are sitting there doing nothing. So what we've done is allow a service provider to take those spare drive bays, put commodity hard disks or SSDs into those, and turn that into a big virtual pool of storage. You can then carve out from that virtual pool of storage individual virtual disks that can then be provisioned for each customer. The great thing about this is it still has all the properties that you'd expect from an enterprise class SAN. So, for example, data can be replicated as many times as you want across that storage area network, and we'll make sure that it's held across multiple hypervisors for redundancy purposes. You can stripe data for performance. So it gives you all of those capabilities, but because the data is distributed across all of your hypervisor servers, there is no single bottleneck that exists. And indeed, we have clever algorithms that will try to make sure that the storage is always sitting as close as that one copy at least of the storage is sitting next to the compute that is consuming it. So in other words, that removes network traffic altogether because it's sitting on the same hypervisor server. So it's a pretty clever way, we think, of dealing with the problem of first of all the cost of storage, because you effectively pay as you grow with this solution, and you're able to use commodity hardware. But it also deals with those scalability issues that service providers come up across all too often. And finally, one of the really important things about it is that whereas if you have a traditional RAID-based storage environment, you kind of have to define all the properties up front. If it's a RAID 10, storage area network, you've defined the redundancy, the performance, all that sort of thing up front, and so you're very limited in the sort of in the ways you can package that for your end customer. With the OnApp storage product, within that big pool of storage that you've created, you can on an individual virtual disk by virtual disk basis define several different parameters. So, for example, how many copies do I want of any piece of data, and what performance do I want for that particular virtual disk? So I can define for a customer that's paying a lot of money, they can get the best performance, 5 copies of data, so that they're never going to lose anything. For a customer that's bargain basement, I can define just a couple of copies of data and a lower tier of storage.
So it gives the service providers a lot of flexibility.
So it gives service providers lots of flexibility in how they package that. Yeah.
So OnApp had an announcement recently that you're going to support VMware. How is that?
Yeah. So
going to help the service provider community, I guess.
Absolutely. So up until this point, we have been supporting Zen and KVM environments, and so we've now added VMware to that stable. The important thing there is obviously this now means that we're covering the majority of virtualization environments. So we should be able to which should meet the requirements of most service providers out there. I think one of the important things about this is that there is whereas Zen and KVM are extremely popular in the service provider environment, VMware is obviously a very important choice, especially for larger enterprise customers who will often want their cloud provider to be able to offer them a VMware environment. So it does allow service providers to do that. And I think the important thing here is that it actually allows service providers to manage from a single place, single pane of glass, single product, all of those virtualization environments at the same time. So again, it gives them great flexibility in what they're able to offer to their end customers and how they price it and package it.
So what's ahead for OnApp?
So I think one of the really important things for OnApp coming up is we talked a bit about the OnApp CDN product, which takes advantage of service providers' spare infrastructure and federates it together. Looking forward for OnApp, we're going to be adding more capabilities into that federation, so into that marketplace. So allowing service providers to federate other types of infrastructure and buy and sell that based on their customer requirements. So, for example, if you're a service provider in New York, for example, and you have a customer come to you and say, well, I would like to deploy my application in New York, but also in Amsterdam, then you would simply be able to come to the OnApp marketplace and buy compute from another service provider in Amsterdam and provision that for your customer. From the customer's perspective, it is all held under your brand, single point of billing, single pane of glass to manage the whole thing. So we think that's an important direction for cloud providers to be able to offer this sort of global capability, but with that local touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.